Kind of like I'm doing right now.
Right.
Actually, it's kind of timely. Yes, it's very clever cinematography here. This is really method acting, I guess. So I was just so nervous. I was just shaking, you know. And he said, "What's going on?" He said, "What's happening?" So my voice was shaking. I said, "I'm nervous because you're Thomas Merton." And I worked at the pig barn at the time. And he said, "This is a great intervention." He said, "Every day after afternoon work before Vespers, I want you to come in here every day and talk to me about the pigs." So I'd go in and I'd knock on his door and he'd ring his little bell and we would talk about the pigs, like sow number 5, how's her foot, and all this. And he really remembered all this stuff. It was extremely healing for me. And so this idea of compassion is the body of emptiness and so on, in terms of all that I learned from Thomas Merton, is talking about the pigs, because he leveled the playing field. And it was in that context then it freed me up to have these dialogues with him. It's very transformative. And I think years later, it really, I think, was a kind of a seedbed for my decision to be a therapist. You know, how a single statement can change a person's life. Yeah, working with pigs. Yeah. How do you get down into the trenches with somebody? And when you open up and get vulnerable and real, it can change your whole life. And sitting with somebody, saying, you know, we're in this together. You know, we're in this together, and walk the walk together. So that was a big one. And then another big one then for me was there was a big idea there at the monastery that by the monks living in the cloister, there's a kind of a love energy that radiates out and touches the whole world. And Thomas Merton said that's true, that's in the tradition. Thomas Merton once said that perhaps the people whose lives we will touch the most deeply are people we won't meet until after we're dead. And he had insomnia. And he says suddenly the bed becomes an altar, and in a distant city somewhere someone's suddenly able to pray. So he had that strong sense of interconnectedness with everything. But then when we were talking about that at one of our times together, he said, but that's not the deepest thing. He said, the deepest thing is this is a place where someone can give his whole life completely to God. That's what that is. He said, that's what this place is for. So that idea, what that would even mean, like to give my whole life completely to the infinite. You know what I mean? Like I would let it have its way with me, that I would surrender to it. And that's the other things we talked about. And so then he introduced me to the mystics and kind of introduced me to these texts who kind of mentor us in that art form, you know, surrendering to God. And I think the third thing then, for me also then, was just his own brokenness. He was so disarmingly honest and real. You know, like what you saw is what you got. And there was no pretense, there was no, I don't know, he was just so almost childlike and playful in how free he was in his brokenness and this kind of surrendered fidelity like this. And once he had a hermitage, and I was going to, if I stayed, I would have become a hermit. I used to help take care of his hermitage for him. And once I was walking up near his hermitage, and he was sitting all alone in the ground on the porch outside of his hermitage, in the lotus position, you know, sitting there doing yoga, meditation, just sitting there alone out in the, just sitting there. And so I don't know, he was just very, you know, like the power of the teacher to change your whole life. That's what he was for me. You know. There's this idea in a way of understanding creation is that infinite reality, God is infinite reality, infinitely giving itself away as our life. And that this giving is absolute. So that it would stop, if the love would stop loving us into the present moment, right in that moment we'd vanish. Because we're absolutely nothing other than and apart from that love. Now,
is that like the definition of grace molecule?
Well, it would be the definition of the divinity of the material world. You see, that's what it would be. It would be the divinity of the material world. It's the manifestation of the unmanifested mystery of love. You know, manifesting itself as the incarnate world itself. See? And
That's hopeful.
oh yeah, it is. It's extremely hopeful. It's the ingraspable, it's the incomprehensible stature of simple things. You know, that everything is itself manifesting the mystery that we seek.
Okay, go ahead.
So then, if it's absolute and perpetual, that is breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. And because I was living in silence as a monk, see, then I thought, well, can I become so silent that I could hear God speaking me into being? And